Defense officials from around the world are gathering in Singapore for the annual Shangri-La Dialogue. French President Emmanuel Macron is set to give the keynote speech. While the US is not sending its president, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will be there. Discussions are expected to focus on the growing military threat from China, along with the latest cross-border clashes between India and Pakistan.
US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's task at the Shangri-La Dialogue is to convince Asian nations that the United States is a more trusted partner for the region than China, as the Pentagon chief lays out his vision for the Trump administration's defense policy for Asia. The annual gathering of global defense officials in Singapore takes place with the US-China relationship at a perilously low ebb. Tension is ratcheting higher between Washington and Beijing over issues such as trade tariffs, technology, and Taiwan. China's rapid military modernization and maritime conflicts in the South China Sea have jangled nerves in the region, and Asian allies will be looking for a steer from Hegseth on where the Trump administration stands. Hegseth visited the Philippines and Japan in March. This was read as a sign that the secretary was taking a more traditional approach to alliances.
As you know, President Trump has said America will re-establish peace through strength. President Trump has also made it very clear, and we reiterate, we are going to put America first. But America first does not mean America alone.
China will not send its top military diplomat, Defense Minister Dong Jun, to the forum for the first time since 2019. This means the world's two largest economies will miss a window for direct high-level military communication. Beijing, too, has been courting closer ties with Southeast Asia, portraying itself as a reliable trading partner and trying to build consensus against Donald Trump's trade tariffs. A major talking point will be regional efforts to establish a code of conduct for the South China Sea, to avoid conflict and manage tensions in the disputed maritime territory. Confrontations between China and Southeast Asian countries, particularly the Philippines and Vietnam, have intensified. The resource-rich waters are currently the scene of regular ship collisions and rammings. French President Emmanuel Macron delivers the keynote address in Singapore on Friday. A large group of European countries are also attending at this moment of doubt in Washington's policy towards the region. Macron will be keen to depict France and Europe as both uniquely reliable and understanding partners, unlike the US or China.
And let's get more on this from DW's East Asia correspondent Melissa Chan in Taipei. Melissa, what can we expect from the French president's speech?
Well, the details will be shown in a few hours when he does take the podium. But I think it's important to put some context and numbers since we are at a defense, or since we are looking at a defense summit. China has the world's largest navy with about 230, 240 ships, depending on how you count. Compared to the United States, it's surpassed with about 220, 219, again, depending on how you count. It's helpful for context, right? France has a total of 150, so almost half the amount of naval power that Emmanuel Macron brings, and that is something, of course, the Asian countries are well aware of. France's economy, top 10, but nothing like the size of the United States or China. So while it is interesting that he is here for the Shangri-La Dialogue and a number of also European representatives, this is a newfound interest in the Indo-Pacific that we haven't seen 5 or 10 years ago. Nevertheless, what will be the focus of the dialogue this weekend is going to be on what the United States and China says.
So how worried should Asian countries be about the US commitment to peace in the Indo-Pacific?
Well, there's two answers to this. One is that hopefully U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth knows what ASEAN is by this point. He famously did not seem aware of what the acronym stood for during his congressional confirmation. That stands for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. He is going to be in Singapore to give a speech, so hopefully he did that homework. But on the other hand, operationally, I think it's really important for people to understand that nothing has changed in the U.S. military presence in the Indo-Pacific. between the Biden administration and the Trump administration. So military exercises that were planned long ago have not been canceled, for example, by U.S. President Donald Trump. He certainly, disrupted a lot of aspects of the U.S. government, but this is something that operationally we are not seeing a change in the Indo-Pacific, and that is reassuring for countries like South Korea, Japan, and frankly other countries with maritime disputes with China. But again, the political rhetoric does make people nervous.
So what can we expect from the U.S. Defense Secretary's speech at this conference?
Well, we expect that he will reiterate the U.S. presence and commitment to the Indo-Pacific. He will likely mention China in some way or other. It will be very interesting to see if he says anything about Taiwan, where I'm speaking to you from. And it's no secret that his boss, U.S. President Donald Trump, doesn't seem to like Taiwan. He likes Taiwan about as much as he likes Ukraine. And so that will be an interesting point. And at a time when so many security analysts are looking at the Taiwan Strait and saying it's possible, it's hard to prognosticate, but it's possible that China might do something in the next 18 months. And by that, I don't mean a necessarily kinetic invasion, but maybe a quarantine or blockade. People are talking about that. It will be interesting to see if the U.S. Defense Secretary signals something to China on that matter.
Melissa Chan in Taipei, thanks so much.